but got to participate in something that they felt good about in high school, or had at least 2 other adults who they knew cared about them, or felt safe in their school, or anyway, it was really, really helpful information. So yeah, if I had the whole thing, I will dig out the notes from that and pass it along to the group. But it kind of essentially said, hey, okay, here's the things that could happen to you, and here's the good things that fight against that. And so for example, some of us who have multiple ACEs don't have the negative health outcomes that many do. And it was really hopeful. Actually, it's called Hope. Yeah, no, really nice information. It was presented by someone who's on the Fairview Hospital staff. And I don't know if she's a social worker or on the chaplaincy staff or what, but it was really helpful. So I will pass it along. But I got to dig some stuff off my desk.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Kay. Even if you have a link to like that conference, that should provide, some information.
The conference, that was really a small part. This was the small, like the capstone conversation. So, but I do have the connection to the information and where that could be gotten. And it was, like I said, it was really helpful. So
I find it super, super interesting as well. And we've been following and studying it for some time in Robbinsdale. And our coordinator of our family service collaborative, for us, it's called Redesign, actually had conducted a survey within our district to understand better the ACEs locally. And what our community looks like in terms of their ACE scores. And our district is extremely high, which we're not surprised to hear, but to have the data in terms of those ACE scores was interesting. And so I really started thinking about, it's something we've all been looking at and studying. However, it's not something that I have ever taken a universal approach to. I deal with it a lot. We all do, right? When we recognize someone says something in a group and we ask them, it sounds like there's a lot there. Do you want to talk one-on-one? Or we're coming across a lot in home visits, but I don't think I've necessarily taken a universal approach to it. So Mary Kay, I'm intrigued by the idea of creating a lesson plan to do with groups, to talk exactly about what you are talking about, so that they also have this bigger picture, because that was one of the things that Redesign uncovered in our district, and they're thinking about, I haven't seen any recent information about it, but offering community, like what you just attended, but offering it in the community to everybody, because the belief is the more we understand, the more we can promote those resiliency factors. So for me, I wanted to share that I've been playing with this in my mind about a universal approach to, to presenting and sharing and diving into that a little bit in ECFE. And so I decided to write my PGP, my professional growth plan, around it this year. And I am using what happened to you to embed and to build that lesson plan. And then we'll see what happens. So I don't know what that will look like necessarily and how it will be received. But at any rate, I think it will be interesting, and I'm super appreciative of you bringing it up in the conversations that are happening around ACEs.
Well, the conference yesterday was aimed at religious people, and I am loath to bring much of that into many school places, because we know that some people have incredible unhappiness about acknowledging that we are also people of faith, some of us. I got my hand slapped about something this week. So the whole thing was aimed at suicide prevention for faith leaders. But this hope piece presented by Ann Ellison from Fairview was not necessarily faith-based. And it was really a really good piece. And I asked her afterwards, and she said, I will send the deck of the the slide deck. And it's not mine. She said, I created it, but you can share it with anyone you want. So I will be sure to share that as soon as I, like I said, dig stuff out. So yeah. I took a class 2 years ago about using storytelling to deal with ACEs from a seminary. So it was obviously in a faith-based setting, but and so I was especially interested, and they use this new tool called Poll, P-O-L-L. I don't know if anyone else has done this, but they can take a poll of the people in the room on computer and you text an answer. Yeah. So they asked people at the beginning of the day, how many people knew anything about ACEs? And 6% of us did. And since there was about 40 people there, I'm guessing it was me and Ann. I mean, it was not common knowledge. Poll everywhere is what it's called. Yeah, thank you. And it was really interesting to me how it was a wonderful way to cap the day, because sometimes when people see the ACEs information, I think they think that's destiny, and it's not. And I knew that because the reason I took that class is because I have 5 of those ACEs, and I'm a whole healthy adult, more or less, and it's not the end of the world. It matters. Yes, it matters, but it's not the end of the world. And so, and this specific suggestion that there are things we can do. She also asked communities, and it was directed to faith communities, but I think the questions would be very easy to edit to become one addressed to larger communities, school communities or political communities or whatever, saying, have you considered this? Have you considered this? Have you considered doing this? Things that would bring about some of those protective things. So intergenerational relationships, all sorts of good stuff. So anyway, sorry to commandeer the conversation, but yeah, good stuff.
Susan, to answer your question in the comments, yes. I think right before COVID, like the last in-person Menafee spring conference had, I'm terrible with names, so I don't remember names at all, but one of the keynote speakers was about childhood trauma and ACEs and resiliency.
And have the speakers you've heard translated, because I think there's that sort of research to practice or research to teaching, you know, that have given tools for teaching parents about ACEs. I mean, I would have to imagine they're out there, but have things that Menafee explored that so that you know, so Nikki, you're shaking your head, yes. And Maston. Oh, and Maston, of course. Yeah. Well, welcome again, everyone. Again, I'm recording. Like I said in my note, I think this information about ACEs is really important. And I was just actually, while you were talking, I was just searching for the original. Yeah, I don't have I can give the citation, but there's a way back in my graduate school days, we studied about the Hawaii study, and which a lot of this started with. And so it was a longitudinal research, so I'll put in the citation there. So where an anthropologist had followed children, you know, and identified those early, there's sort of risk and preventive factors, but the finding was the same, right, as with the ACEs. Whereas why is it that some children under incredibly adverse conditions still make it, right, and other kids don't? And sort of opened up that idea of resilience. And I have to say, though, sort of teaching the difference between resilience and risk is not an easy thing. You know, it's almost easier, like in the heart disease literature around protective and, like preventive and non-preventive, like what are you born with and what can you prevent? Like that's sort of this bifurcation that people can kind of get, but that idea of resilience is not that. And so kind of teaching that is, oh, great, my dog just pooped on the floor. Teaching that isn't always the clearest thing in the world. So anyway, but thank you for bringing that up, Mary Kay. So how are you guys this week? Anybody have anything for the group you want to share or ask the group to help you with?
I'm curious if others are dealing with understaffing in their districts and how they're coping with that, because it's been probably, including COVID, because that's all of my teaching experience. It's been probably the most stressful start to a school year I've ever had, with regularly having to do the job to teachers. And I feel burnout coming, like big time, and not just for me, but for the handful. I say handful for the 2 paras we have, and so we have a few subs, but we're treating them like they have a long-term full-time position or something. Like it's not pretty. I'm wondering what it's like for others.
I can share that I have an evening class that is an infant class that is non-separating, and traditionally in my district, we've had 2 EAs or paras with the group, and I'm in the class as well. And this year we only have 1, and the EA is feeling very stressed and that it's not safe for the kids. And she's really, really, really busy and running to keep them, they want to climb on things or interacting well with each other. And we do have a request out to fill the second EA position. So it's not something that's just been missed. They are bringing in subs for that position, but it's not been regular. But one thing that I think is really interesting, and I'm guessing every district has their version of this, but the part of your district that vets volunteers, for us, it's called VIP, it's volunteers in partnership. And volunteers, if we want to bring a volunteer into the classroom, they need to go through this, part of the district's kind of vetting process. And I brought this up because in our district now, in regard to this class that needs an extra EA, because in the past, we've worked really successfully with some National Honor Society students who are they need service hours. And so I don't know that would work for an ECFE class in the daytime when those kiddos are in school, but for us in the evening classes, that's when I've had National Honor Society students. And so I just posed that as a question recently to get some extra hands on deck for that evening class. Golly, if we could even get 1 or 2 National Honor Society volunteers, that makes a huge difference for us.
I would also point out that many of the people who are in National Honor Society are also taking PSEO classes. And we have a tech staff person on our church staff here who only has about 2 or 3 classes a week, and they're all on one day. And so he's over here all the time when we need him, if there's a need. So just because they're high school students in normal high school means they're busy all day doesn't necessarily mean those high achievers don't have some free time. And many of them can make free time if they, like 100 years ago, when I was in something at Burnsville High, we were sent to an elementary school to help work with reading students. And 5 of us went in one car, and we went to 5 different classrooms, and we got English credit for it. So.
Becca, we are kind of in the same situation that you're experiencing here too, just to validate that it's not uncommon. Today I was even thinking, so when do we not have enough staff and we have to just cancel classes, even if we have a waiting list of people in our preschools too, like and because we just have so much and certain things are growing really fast, but maybe not with the time and energy support to train people in, right? Or the change up. Somebody's left and now we're filling in a new staff who hasn't done this before. And these tier teachers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 things are happening in our environment too. And that gets tricky. So it's kind of like a perfect storm kind of feeling at times. So I relate, it's not easy. It's all the time. And Nikki, you said this one, right? Parenting from the inside out. Okay, look at the binder has not been bent at all. So no, I haven't read it, but it's on my shelf.
It's pretty good.
It's good. Yeah, good stuff.
Well, everyone who has taken 5937 at the U has that book.
This one.
Also, that thing that I forwarded from Dan Siegel, that sort of package of materials, and it includes that book as well.
Susan, would you be willing to pause recording for a few moments?
Yes, I will. And
so Nikki, you shared when we met a month ago, and you shared a lot with me as a new parent educator, but one of the things you shared was your observation slideshow. And I have been doing observation this week as my lesson. And it's so funny because as a former Montessori teacher, observation is key. And you literally spend 2 solid weeks sitting in a chair in a classroom as part of your training and taking notes and not interacting with children and observing. But I hadn't thought about it yet as a parent ed topic. So I'm grateful that you shared that with me. And I modified it and made it my own, of course, but just having your base was so great. So thank you, Nikki. I have had a thank you note written in my head all week, but now I get to tell you in person.
Thank you so much for sharing. I can go next. I want to say I also did observation, and it was really, the parents make so much of it. I had asked the question, what do children gain when they know that their parents are sitting in observation of them? And, they talked about the things, safety, security, pride, and being proud. And, they came up with significance and belonging and all the things that we're thinking about. And one dad said, I don't mean to be the downer or anything. He said, but sometimes that helps me when I think about the things that are negative. And I said, please, add, we want your thoughts. And he said, well, I think sometimes, and he holds up his phone, these things get in the way of observation. And of course, it was one of those moments that we all are thinking about all the time. Like, yes, when your little one, when they look up and they don't meet your eyes because your eyes are here, what is it that you're saying is important to them? But we don't really say that. So having him share that with the group and it led to, the conversation that we hope will happen. So I thank you, Jenny, for sharing that because I too think it's so important. But I'll share my thing that I often feel like I'm in the right place at the right time. That I feel so fortunate and lucky to be in this work. And today I had a webinar from 9 until 10. And I was in the Flex lab because that was the space that was checked out to me. And I just sat there for another 15 minutes doing email before I was going to go do something else that did need to get done, but I was not accountable to anyone in that moment. And I got an email in that time period from my social worker over at one of the high schools, the one that's directly across the street from my building, saying that one of my students was in her office in tears and could I come over today at some point in time? And I just was able to say, I'm on my way. Like, please keep her there. I'll be there in a few minutes. And I think I was maybe 5 or 6 minutes later. And how often is it that you actually see an email come in, right? It might be 2 hours later that you see an email or, it just was how it played out today. And I really felt grateful for the opportunity. It was just one of those right place, right time. And the way that this whole thing played out was, I think, a gift for all of us today.
I had last weekend, I volunteered for the NAMI walk. And NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And their walk in Minnehaha Park is their big fundraiser of the year. So people, it's like a 5K and very slow, leisurely walk. A lot of people have their dogs with them. But it's a way that people will walk in teams and they get donations, for their team. So it's very nice for NAMI. And I volunteered at the headquarters table, which mostly is like the information table. So I got up my inner concierge and it was great. But I volunteered with a woman who works at NAMI, who is the head of children's programs. And NAMI has a lot of support groups and classes. And she was telling me about outreach that they do, where they'll talk about suicide prevention and about eliminating the stigma around mental illness, especially in high schools. And, very similar to our experiences, just the power of opening up the dialogue, with kids who are in a pretty hardcore environment and hold a lot of stuff in, and how valuable it was for that. And I was just asking her too about if their outreach ever went to like families in early childhood. And it doesn't sound like they have like a dedicated program, almost like Family Tree, where they would come in and specifically design it. But she said that they have like an early detection of, anyway, but it's like a developmental, and they definitely reach into early childhood. Anyway, I was just so grateful for the experience, and I'm going to dig a little bit more because NAMI for Minnesota is statewide, and it's a pretty terrific organization, just to see if there might be some resources to offer ECFE programs. And I was curious if any of you have had interactions with NAMI or have had anybody from NAMI like have joined any of your ECFE classes.
I haven't had anyone join, but I go out to their site and get some of their newsletters, and that's helpful at times. But that's a great idea to have somebody come out, or connect in that way, like that.
The group that NAMI was part of, one of the groups that met yesterday, and this was especially focused on suicide in rural areas. Apparently the suicide rate in Minnesota is about twice what it is in urban areas, in the rural areas. And so we're trying to do some thoughtful outreach to farmers and other people in rural areas who may come at the concerns about stigma and that kind of stuff differently. But they had lots of posters and handouts and stuff like that that was really helpful. And I'm guessing that most of NAMI has, they have business cards, they have little brochures, they have all that kind of stuff. And I'm betting they might send like an info packet if you just called and asked them. If you had 14 parents in a class and you wanted to share stuff about them, and that might be enough of a beginning discussion to see if you want to invite someone specific or.
I'm thinking too that it goes two ways. We're talking about bringing someone to NAMI or from NAMI into ECFE. And it's really, I think what we're talking about is so that our parents understand the resources of NAMI. But I think it goes both ways in that if we bring somebody in, yes, our parents are going to know that NAMI is there and some of the resources. I also think that the person or people that come in from NAMI get to see us, and they may start utilizing us as a resource, and that they get a better understanding of what's happening in our groups and the amazing connections that are happening and the potential and possibility and opportunity. So I see that other piece too.
Yeah, I think about families with young children, you know, around screening and sort of all the sort of the questions about normative development and if there is some early signs of depression or from trauma or ADHD or something like that, you know, that again, it's a space that parents would feel supported, you know, that it's not unusual, especially if they don't have anybody in their community, you know, that would talk about it. Great point. Jenny has a question. Jenny does have a question for us, so I want to make sure that we get to that. So any additional notes of gratitude?
Super quick one. Despite all of my struggles, like I am so grateful for the parents who are showing up, the parents who are bringing their kids. Like I am loving getting to know each group, and they are loving being part of a community. Like I really feel it in a different way than I did before COVID. They're really glad to be there and working to make the time meaningful. And so I feel like there's a lot of hope for these being really fantastic classes.
Thanks, Becca. Jenny, do you want to bring your question to the group?
Sure. I put it in the chat, but basically I know I need to sit down after each class and take notes and reflect. And it's partly my undiagnosed ADD brain that, but I've got an email and an answer, and I've got this to do, and I've got this to do. And it's so hard for me to settle. And I'm also usually hungry, so that I'm eating my lunch. Anyway, I just was curious. I always learn from other people's habits. Like, how do you make sure that, or how do you make time for reflection right after a class or after a set of classes? Or do you?
I am not good at that. I am with you, Jenny. I feel like I'm pulled to other things very quickly and then forget things, but I do have my calendar like this, and I just put bullet points, sometimes just bullet points, just to kind of try to click into a memory of what I need to do, or if anything stood out or something like that. It might not be immediately after class. It might be at the beginning of my next class. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to make sure to put that down. It's random. It's my random brain that does that to me for sure too. So no, you're not alone. And then it's not always easy, but a good routine, a routine within a routine within a routine would probably be very beneficial. A specific place maybe where you have it that you're gonna look back at and see again, and you'll be able to get to it. Or that's all I got right now.
I have a thought about, so I record things, as Jenny was saying too, you know, on my lesson plan while I'm teaching, right? So sometimes I can just capture 5 words. But my system, so I will, if I can get the time after class, right, I'll write at the top of every single lesson plan for next week. And I actually jot down the things that I know I need to address. However, like Jenny's saying, how do we always get that time? You've got the email, you have to get to your next class and all these things. So my informal system, I've always got the notes on my lesson plan, but I might not have had the time to actually expound upon them and fill them out and write as much as I would like. And so you'll laugh, but my answer is I leave that folder out, like that classes folder. I don't let myself put it in my backpack. And so if my folder is still on my desk, I know that I need to go back to that and finish that reflection.
Yeah, I just started using folders this fall. I didn't need them in the spring as a Hastings. I just didn't have enough classes, but that is helpful. And I've been leaving stuff on the top of it. And then sometimes I just pile it all on my desk because there's a class coming in. I can't leave it out, but leaving stuff out has really helped. what I'm finding is I oftentimes later in the day will like remember a parent comment and think to myself, oh my gosh, that would be so good to record that class talked about that. And yeah, it's tricky. And I also, I counted up last week the number of children I met between all our plus our drop-ins, and it was about 110 children plus their caregivers. There are about 30 of those are from a drop-in in place, so that changes. But you just realize by Friday afternoon, I was like, my brain is full. So that's part of it. I'm sure once I get to know families more, it will feel less scattered. But any other ideas welcome.
That's, I'm a big journaler. So like the having one place. So just like other people have said, I quick jot notes on my lesson plan during the lesson. And I have let classes know that I have ADHD, and I have said, if you don't see me write it down, can you please say, hey Becca, will you write that down? So like, it's okay, it's not rude, and my feelings won't be hurt. Like if it's something especially if it's something I say I'm going to do, can you please just make sure I write it down? You know, it's okay to be on me for that. But I have like a place where like week 3 and it's just, I go back through, and it usually doesn't happen until the end of the day when my brain can feel like it can take a breath. That I will just jot, and it might be just even recopying some of the notes I put on my lesson plan. It might be fleshing out thoughts of like, this part of the lesson really needed a different activity, or this question went over like a lead balloon, or whatever it is, you know, like, so that I have that in one place. Because if I don't have it all in one place, like different places, my ADHD brain doesn't do well with that at all. I need to have one place I can look things up. And I have our Perfect Connections things here too. So it's just like, okay, I know we talked about that 2 weeks ago. What did someone say? And I wrote it down. So having one place for me is the key. I also have blank spots because I sometimes forget to. So I am very much a work in progress with that, but there is one place.
Becca, when you said that, it reminds me of some quotes that I hear from Gretchen Rubin, the Happiness Project, years ago, and she has a podcast, and she'll say something that can happen at any time usually happens at no time. And so that idea, or if it doesn't have a specific place, it has no place, or things like that, you know, just, I think it's good practice for those of us who need it more maybe than some, but yeah, it's clever. I like clever. It makes me feel better, because if it's not clever, it feels shaming, and because I can go there so fast, right? Oh, I should. And then all those voices from my childhood go, yeah, and that's not good enough, right? So make it clever.
Which is interesting, coming on the heels of talking about mental illness and awareness and normalizing the challenges we struggle, right? Like, so at first I didn't used to want to share any of my struggles in that way, but now it's like, nope, we're just going to normalize it and not have shaming at all. It's like, oh yeah, my brain needs a little extra help here. So if you don't see me write it down, it might get lost. and it's not something that I need to feel bad about. It's just my brain works in a different way.
Yep. Good reminder.
Thanks everyone, so helpful.
This really is like my parent ed time. So thank you all for it so much. I always feel refreshed, and that whole, just what we hope our parents feel of, you're not in this alone. Y'all bring that to this so much. So thank you.
Can I just share my gratitude to wrap this up a little bit? Is that okay? So I have a student teacher this year, and she's a preschool teacher in our program as well. And she brought her little affirmations that she does with her class, and they put actions to it, and she brought it to my class. And I am starting to use them, and I love them. And I am so thankful for somebody bringing just another idea. I am a creature of habit, and if I can water my plants at 8 a.m. on Saturday mornings, I am a happy person. But when I have something new brought to me, I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun too. So I'm so thankful for student teachers bringing great ideas, and I am thankful for affirmations, and I'm careful with them because I I know affirmations can be tricky for some people, and it's like, well, I can't, I'm not going to say that because it's not true. But it was fun this week. I just had them I took them off of the little binder and then passed them around. Just say, take one that kind of resonates the most with you. And then they just held them up, and we still went around and everyone said all of them. But I just, I don't know. I'm thankful for a new idea and a student teacher who's bringing them to me. So we're trying this out this semester. So I'll let you know how it goes. I want to do it regularly. I want to do it regularly enough so this is our enriching time together. And in a place that as we leave this space, let's think of these things in ourselves because they're there somewhere, you know, just be reminded of them. So, and my last one is always, you are enough, because I think that's the hardest one. So anyway, that was my gratitude.
Oh, way to go and finish us off in such an up note, Greta. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's
Uh,
good to be back here. Thank you for
Yes, oh, it's
I haven't
wonderful.
been gone a long time, so this is good.
Well, does anybody have anything else before we close out? It's a little after 1.
Susan, I have, thank you for sharing that Mindsight Institute. I mean, it is for elementary and middle school, and that is perfect for me. I purchased it and I look forward to study it. And also another thing, I registered for the Manami fall workshop, that 1-day workshop. However, I don't have PayPal, so I asked my partner to pay the $79. And then so I never received any response from Manami or any confirmation. I wonder what's going on there. I wonder who I can reach to resolve this problem.
Which agency?
Manafi.
Oh, Manafi. Oh,
Yeah.
Well, I have a thought, but I don't want to share it on the thing. So I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah. But in general, I think wherever, like, there should be like an info@manafi.org, or, you know, like whatever the registration, or they should have a thing like for questions or something like that.
I sent 2 emails, no response.
Well, remember, Manafi isn't an all volunteer organization.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I understand.
yeah, I mean, just that. So, but yeah, I'll share this person's contact info. I wouldn't expect an immediate response because, again, this isn't the only thing that person does. So,
Yeah.
but if anybody's going to know anything, this person would. So, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a fabulous week. Next week, we'll be meeting in October already. So, yeah. All right. So take care, everyone, and
Happy
have a
weekend.
fabulous week.
Thank you.